But I will tell you that the numbers are alive. And if you're looking at your address, your phone number, these numbers are describing energy. And the energy, it's geometric, and they give you a lot of information. But yes, everybody should be watching those numbers for sure.
Welcome to New Earth Podcast, where we dive into inspiring stories, profound wisdom, and insights from remarkable individuals who are driving the consciousness shift on our planet. If you're ready to elevate your awareness and well-being, you're in the right place. But before we dive into today's episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Together, we'll continue to explore the ideas and conversations that help you up-level your consciousness. Thank you so much for your support and your comments and for being part of this journey. Hello and welcome back to New Earth Co-Creators. Today's episode is a revolutionary one. My guest today, Dr. Craig Vierra, is co-author of the 363 code, and he says that he's cracked the 369 Tesla code, solving what many consider to be a century-long mystery. Tesla is attributed to have said that if we understand the magnificence of the numbers 3, 6, and 9, we would have the keys to the universe. And Craig proposes that these are not mere quantities, but living geometric principles embedded in nature, encoded in the ancient structures and woven into the fabric of reality. So this understanding carries far-reaching implications and even transforming our fundamental understanding of energy itself. So welcome, Craig. Absolutely delighted to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm very excited to share this information with everybody.
And I know you've said it's time to do this now, you know, that it's very relevant to what we're going through at this time. Before we dive into all the material, can you just talk a little bit about Tesla for those listeners that don't know of his legacy?
Yeah, so Tesla was an amazing scientist. He was born in 1856, and he came to the United States. He was an expert in electromagnetism. So electricity, magnetism was his thing, and he is very well known for producing alternating current. This is basically what powers all of our houses today. So it's energy that travels down power lines and enters into the house and is converted back into direct current. And this is revolutionary because it's powering everything. In fact, almost so many of our modern devices that use energy come from Tesla's inventions. And so alternating current, the electrical motor is another one that he's credited for. He had a lot of patents that he did. And his vision was to provide humanity with electricity that was transmitted in a wireless fashion. So just a pure genius. And he, for his principles, he was using what's considered to be resonance. So there's a difference in physics between resonance and like Newtonian force. So I just want to kind of explain just a little bit about that because it's so important, and you see resonance all over, and it's in biology as well. So resonance, if I could give you an example, it would be, let's say we had a glass, a crystal glass, and it was sitting in front of us. Now I could break it using Newtonian force with a hammer, and that would deal with more push, more pull. Or I could sing, and this is where we have resonance, and I could, with the object, I could match the vibrational frequency of those molecules in the glass, and we could become involved in communication, and the energy could become amplified, and I wouldn't even have to be close to the glass. And the glass, if the energy built up too much and it got amplified, it could shatter. And so always in resonance, there's always, you have at least two objects that are in communication with one another. And what a lot of individuals don't realize is that you can have objects that are in resonance with colors as well, because colors are really shapes, and they will vibrate as well. So there's a lot going on with resonance that most of the world is maybe doesn't have the awareness of this. And so I'm trying to increase the awareness of how important resonance, how important it is in everything that we do. And even like for locomotion, right now our airplanes, they push against air, so it's more Newtonian physics. But if you had resonance, you could actually like glide. So there's so many applications here when you implement resonance instead of Newtonian physics.
That's so interesting. So we're moving away from that kind of mechanical view of the world into a much more living, breathing kind of basis of the universe. And I understand that how you perceive the numbers is, it's they're not just kind of words on a sheet or numbers on a sheet, that they too have this quality. Um, can you speak to that? And also, I quoted Tesla in the beginning, if we understand the mystery of the 369, we solve the keys of the universe. What do you believe he meant by that, Craig?
Yeah, so this is a very like fascinating statement that he made. So to begin with, I think if you look at Tesla, he understood that the universe was living. It was alive, it was breathing, and much of his work really kind of moved away from the mechanical aspect of the universe. And many of the scientists treat the universe as a mechanical. And this clearly what it was not, Tesla, it wasn't his perspective. It was alive, it was breathing. Um, there was there was a grid that between two individuals in the invisible space. It was geometric. He referred to this as the ether, the etheric lattice. It's chock full of energy. And he was so interested in being able to tap that energy. And he was using the planet's vibration, its resonance. He wanted to be able to tap into that. He realized it was so much energy that could be harnessed and utilized. And so he really spent a lot of time working on this aspect. The actual 369, I really became quite fascinated by that statement that he made. And I believe that it had to do with the energy, the invisible space, the etheric lattice, and this three, the six, the nine. So I started to really search for the answers behind that statement, and looking into some of his mathematics, and I dove kind of deep into that. But the three, the six, and the nine, what I found out on my journey was that the six represented the feminine and the magnetic. It described how the energy was coming out of a singularity, what physicists call a singularity, which is full potential. It's like everything. And the energy was coming out, and then the energy would come out, and then it would return back into the singularity, which was the masculine. And that number was represented as three, and the pause was represented as a nine. So the 369 was describing the actual breadth of the universe.
Wow.
And the physics was actually in the numbers, and the numbers are we'll get into kind of where they come from on this lattice, this grid, but it's truly amazing. And he was using this information. I don't know, when he passed away, a lot of his information, he was living in the New Yorker hotel, and he was on the 33rd floor in room 27. And that number is very fascinating as well, as far as encryptions with numbers. And a lot of his information disappeared. And several trunks, it's been mentioned a lot of these trunks disappeared. Some of them came back, they were returned, but not all the information was returned. So we don't really know. We don't really know what information didn't make its way back. I have to think that some of the information about the etheric lattice, the 369, were somewhere in his notebooks, because this really explains the movement of energy, and in geometries related to the numbers are alive, and the geometry breeze. And he had this incredible gift. And this guy was a genius. He didn't have computers, and how he figured all of this out is, it's just mind blowing. And so the mystery here that I'm unraveling has been a mystery for like 100 years, a century. And I wonder where we would have been if we would have had the information a
Yes.
100 years ago, as far as a technological standpoint. So I think it's time for the world to see the information and let the scientists run with this information, and make it very visible, because it definitely has to do with energy, transportation, communication, medicine, education. This information hits all sectors that we have, major sectors on the planet.
I'd love to ask you some questions. And I know that we'd talked about you sharing slides. So, I'm going to leave it with you whether you want to answer them now or whether it's better to kind of answer them as you, because I know you've got some visuals of the mathematics so we don't all get
Mhm.
completely lost. We might still, myself, I'm speaking to, get completely lost, but we can try and get ahead to it. I know you're a professor and you're very, very good at explaining the mathematics in a way, layman's terms, so that we really get it. One of my questions is the significance of the 333, and I'm fascinated about this on a personal level, because I just had recently some beautiful synchronicities with the number 33. I firstly moved to a house that was number 33. And on the day that we moved there, my YouTube channel clicked on to 333. And I think it might have been 3 days later, a friend who was doing a sacred site tour of Glastonbury and Stonehenge and the surrounding area said, I'm doing a tour. My number 33 has dropped out. Would you like to be my number 33? So I'd kind of like to have a better understanding personally what that was all about, because that came in, there were 333s, as it were. And then my other question was about you mentioned the etheric lattice. And if you could talk a little bit more about that, it might be better to do that when you do your visuals. So I'll leave it with you, Craig, as to whether you want to answer my questions or go into your slideshow now.
Okay, let me answer them as just kind of an overview, and then we can go further into the details. So I will mention that of the 369, those numbers, I feel like I see that Tesla's favorite number was three. And he used to do certain things walking around before he would go back into the hotel like three times. Um, so he had a fondness for the number three. And you'll see it in the mathematics as it plays out, and maybe understand why. It certainly probably is linked also to the triangle, and the triangle has 3 points, and that's the most stable. If you start looking at structures, Tesla was very interested in the enclosure of space, and triangles are very, very important. As far as 33, that number is a very hidden esoteric number. Of course, we have the 33 association with the Freemasons, architecture, but this really, I feel like, goes back into ancient Egypt. It goes back into how energy flows. So when we get into that number 33, it's such a magical number, because at the heart of this grid that's invisible, that's between you and me, and it describes how energy flows, you're going to see that number 33. It is so significant. It is like the base number on this grid. And we have to understand that number to understand how the geometry breathes and how the energy moves around. So when you look at the numbers, and a lot of people don't follow numbers. Some people do, but I will tell you that the numbers are alive. And if you're looking at your address, your phone number, these numbers are describing energy, and the energy it's geometric, and it's connected to this grid. And they give you a lot of information. Of course, the grid is not only energy, but it's information because energy is information. Um, so we will get much deeper into that number, and I will show you its relation to shift to some of the geometry, and then I think you'll have a better feeling about it. But yes, everybody should be watching those numbers for sure.
Amazing.
Okay, so I'll
You share
share
your
mine.
screen.
All right, so let me explain to you a little bit about um, Tesla's vortex mathematics. So what I want to do now is I was very fascinated with that statement about 369 and the magnificence of those numbers. And it brought me to something that's referred to as vortex mathematics. So I want to describe kind of in very simple terms what vortex mathematics is. It's kind of a mathematics that a lot of people are not aware of. And I'm going to take just some basic numbers, and I'm going to double the numbers. So I'm going to start with one, and we can double one, and we will get two. And we can double two, and we'll get four. And then we can double four, and we'll get eight. And double eight, and we'll get 16. And what I'm going to do now is something that's called digital rooting. I'm going to take two digits and I'm going to add them together to get a single digit. So 1 plus 6 would be 7. And then if I double 16, I'll end up with 32, where that's a 5. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a number series here. Now these numbers are describing how energy flows. And if I keep going and I double 32, I will get 64 and I can add the 6 and the 4 and I'll get a 10. A single digit, I'll have 1. And if you follow this number pattern, and I'm not going to go through it all, but the same 6 digits are going to repeat in the precise order that I just showed you. So has to do with doubling of numbers. You could say in music, you can take and you can double the frequency. This is known as an octave, so it's associated with harmonics. And if I do the opposite, that is, if I divide the numbers by half, so I'm going to be now halving the numbers, you can see I'll get certain decimals, and I won't go through all of this, but you can see the number pattern reverses. So 1/2 is 0.5. If right now we disregard the decimal point, that's a 5. We take that number and divide it by 2, then we're going to get a 7. And we're going to go through this and we're going to get a 5, 7, 8, 4, 2, 1, which is the complete reverse of these numbers right here. So what does this really mean? It's describing like energy flow. And I can also relate this to in development for cells. Like we start with sperm fertilizes an egg and we get a single cell. And that single cell then will copy itself and it will go to 2, and then it will go to 4, and then it will go to 8 cells, and then it will go to 16 cells. So these are actually mirroring the flow of energy. It's also associated with geometry as well. So what I did, because there were people aware of these numbers. And if you notice something in the numbering pattern, there is no 3 or 6 or 9 that shows up. So I decided to take these numbers and I actually work on spiders, black widow spiders. And the females have a red hourglass on their abdomen. And my research focuses much on these spiders, and I've studied silk and collected silk from spiders, and they spin 7 different silk types, and they have different mechanical properties. And I did a lot of work in the area of molecular biology where I isolated the blueprints that contain the information to build silk, and I made and put these blueprints into bacteria and made spider silk proteins in bacteria and then spun synthetic fibers and then tested the mechanical properties. So I did a lot of like micro dissections on black widow spiders, and I kept looking at the abdomen, and the abdomen had this red hourglass on it. And I was really compelled to model these numbers onto the hourglass. And so I started to put these numbers on the hourglass. And then I thought to myself, well, nobody really includes 3, 6, or 9. So could I take this hourglass and put those numbers on here? And so I put the 3 and the 6, I put them on the 3 on the left side and the 6 on the right side. I drew some dashed lines across this and both vertically and then horizontally. And I started to look at this, and it's like I started to notice that this looked like the Great Pyramid. It right here at the center point of this point of constriction, which we can consider the singularity, where then the energy comes out, which we were talking about, the magnetic, which is the feminine, which is expansion, and then the energy could return here, which would be what I refer to as the dielectric. It's the return energy. It's the compression. There are many different terms to describe that return. And this is, again, the masculine or represented to number 3. So when it was coming back. And so this really fascinated me because it was describing also the breath that Tesla was talking about with the universe breathing. And so this really led me down another pathway that I'm going to share with you. And I'll show you kind of if this little point right here, the point of constriction, if you were to pull it up towards you and then kind of collapses, you would see something that will look like the Great Pyramid. And also there was interesting things when I started to look at these numbers across here. The 1, the 3, the 8, that actually, if you add that up, is a 12, or if you compress that to a single digit, you see that would be a 3, and the 3 and this little 9 across here with the 7 is 18. That would be a 9. The 1 and the 8 would be a 9. And then over here, the 4, 6, and the 5 adds to 15, or the 1 and the 5 would be a 6. And then if you start going around this and following numbers, very fascinating things happen. So I won't go into that right now, but I was seeing this 396 patterning showing up on the absolute hourglass. And so this is an image over here on the right of the Great Pyramid in Giza. And so what a lot of people don't realize is that, yes, it's a square-based pyramid. You can't really see the base. The base is just outlined here. It's just square. And then you can see there's like 4 triangles, but there's a crease running down the center. So if you look over here, you can begin to see, if you were to pull this up, that this structure here is matching this over here, the Great Pyramid in Egypt. And so here's just a picture of a black widow spider, the hourglass on the female. It's red, it's on the abdomen. It doesn't come with these numbers. I put those back on there for just purposes so that you could see where it's located. Then what I did was I actually separated the hourglass into 2 pieces. I noticed it was symmetrical, and I pulled these numbers across. And this number 2178 and also this 2475, these would turn out to be very important numbers in the mathematics, describing both geometry and how energy flows. And I'll share a little bit more with you as we go through this. So there was hidden like significance in this hourglass, and when I put the vortex mathematics back on it. So I'm just going to show you as an example. So this number over here is 2475. If I took that number and I subtracted it from its mirror, so its mirror is where we take the number, you see it's 2475, and we run it backwards, 5742. So this is like a mathematical operation. And what we're really doing is we're taking like 2 phases, a phase differential, if you were talking about energy, and then we're subtracting the 2. So this is an application that led to this number 3267, and I just continued to do this. This is called mirror subtraction. And I have a video on this on my own YouTube site if you want to go look and explore this more. But I put the numbers through an iteration where I was undergoing mere subtraction. And what I noticed something very interesting was that when I did this, I ended up at 2178. And I started with 2475. And if you continue going with this number, it goes in a loop. So I found a series of numbers that upon this mere subtraction, they did not collapse to the number zero or zero, and they actually went into where they were collapsing into what I will refer to as 1089 multiples. So 2178 is 1089 times 2. And so I found this little family of numbers called the 1089 multiples that are reflecting like geometry, but also energy flow. And so I just wanted to show you over here to this. This is the 3 and the 9 and the 6. So let's just go a little bit further. I wanted to show you a little bit about the hourglass and kind of how it can appear. And it's all over our planet. This is an example. This comes out of Abu Dhabi, and this is, you can see, this is looking exactly like the hourglass that I was showing you. And then here, so some companies have the kind of the hourglass. So HSBC, which is a big bank, Hong Kong, Shanghai Banking Corporation. It's in the UK. It's one of the largest banks. And so they have structures that resemble the hourglass. And why would companies do things like this? Well, the symbols actually can pull energy from the invisible space, and they can go into resonance and pull energy. And so companies can thrive or prosper by using specific symbols that will match back with this lattice that's in the invisible space. If you understand the geometry and how the energy flows, you can literally pull what I will refer to as life force. This is the energy that's invisible, the energy that spins galaxies. It's just so much energy that's present there. So now we'll get into a little bit about the lattice. I mentioned earlier that Tesla was he was a real proponent of the etheric lattice or the ether. Mainstream physics has eliminated, they got rid of the ether. And that's interesting because Tesla was such a proponent of the ether, and how he used it to describe like the flow of energy. So let me go over kind of what this is, and there's numbers on it. And this is really the actual code, his 369, I believe. One of the major decryptions here is in this lattice. So we have to understand this lattice to understand a little bit about how energy flows. What you immediately notice is over here, this is a picture from a spider that spun an actual orb web. And so it's a two-dimensional web. They use it to capture prey, but nature always leaves clues about its physics and its animals and the structures that it uses. And then, of course, down here, this is a very famous picture of Nikola Tesla. He's sitting in front of this impulse coil, and you can immediately see the similarity between these two structures right here. And so it's this impulse coil that I want to describe in a little bit more detail. So this is what I'm going to show you next is what I refer to as the etheric lattice or the 33 lattice. And you'll begin to see kind of why that is. But this number 33. So let's first just start with something like very basic as looking at like a clock. A clock, if we talk, if I put the clock is representing a circle, which represents a cycle and how energy flows. If I put a dot on the circle and we wanted to try to figure out where it is, we could use this right here at the center of the circle, which I'll refer to as the singularity. And then we could draw rings that went out. And you can see these are concentric rings that are being drawn out. And they are a distance away from the center point. So we're going to have where we have these rings, they're spaced equivalently from the center, and they're going to be, I'm putting numbers on here, but they're spaced in such a way that they are equivalent and they're harmonic. So we're going to see like a doubling of the numbers, and this is referred to as like a harmonic number. Also, the point would be at a specific angle. And so we have now, not only do we have a distance from the center, we have a specific angle. And so this helps us, provides two pieces of information. And really this should be drawn in 3 dimensions, but I've smashed it down in 2 dimensions just because it's easier to kind of represent so people can see it. But let's go to this like first inner circle here first. And I want to show you something with that number 33, Sarah, that you were asking about. So if you look at these radial lines that are coming off, I can, like a clock, I can draw lines and I can make tick marks like between an hour, several different tick marks or lines that I could draw. And these are coming out of the center. And I'm using this point here and I'm going in 33-degree like increments. So we go to 33, 66, 99, 132, 165, 198, 231, 264, 297, 330, and 363. So this is what the book is called, the 363 code. It is basically a circle being redefined with a different coordinate system away from our traditional circle. And this one has 11, I've drawn it with 11 like slices in a pie. And if you take 363 degrees and divide it by 11, you'll get 33-degree increments. And then we can continue to do this and go into this second circle and then a third circle I've shown here is like a triad, three regions. Now this will go on larger. I just drew it to this point. And you can see here, I've highlighted in red this kind of radial line where things are falling here because there's very important things that are happening. I found that this 1089 represents the square base pyramid. And there are 1089 multiples that will go out further. And they appear like they're all falling on this one radial here line. But in reality, the best way to explain this is that you have circles that are actually nested within circles. And there's a certain rotation in which the circles are, because I can't represent that in a 2-dimensional diagram, but they have certain angles also for rotation. And I found, like with 7 circles, I found 7 points. And these points are arranged such that they form a heptagon, and the energy is actually spiraling out in a structure. It's a heptagonal structure. And this structure you can tie it back to Egypt and energy flow, the hieroglyphs, because I'm able to take this information, and they left in their hieroglyphs the scalar physics of how energy flows. And so I can go into a lot more later, but I just wanted to introduce this etheric lattice, show you some of the numbers on here. The numbers too can be representing geometric structures that are alive and how the energy flows. So I think right there, I'll just
Yeah, before we close the screen share, Craig, I'm just looking at that inner circle and the 363 degrees. So what you're proposing is really a parallel geometry to our 360 degrees circle. Is that correct? And what is the significance of that other than, what you've spoken about? I just wanted to ask that question whilst the visual was still there.
Okay, yes, that's an excellent question. So our traditional circle is defined at 360 degrees. And this has been around, probably around 4,000 years at least, goes back into Babylon. And 360 degrees, we use that system for measurement. 360 degrees can be divided by the number like 1, 2, 3. It's all divisible by many, many numbers. But it represents more of a static measurement system. The 363-degree system is alive, it's breathing. There is complementarity within this system. For example, if you look through here, we go around, there are 11 nodes that go around this first circle. And then we go into the second circle, we go another 11, and that's the number 22, 11 plus 11. And then the third one here, we go around another 11. So 33 times 33 is 1089. This is the first square base pyramid. So we're looking at a scale, we're looking at a scalar circle here. I'm going to define it as a scalar circle. It's different than our traditional circle, which is a Euclidean circle. And this actually will fit more in describing how energy will flow in a cycle. Whereas the traditional circle, it's more fixed. Also, I want to emphasize that this system that I'm describing here is using whole numbers. It's a harmonic system, and our original, and it's also a system of resonance. So we've opened the conversation about resonance. It's a system of resonance. Whereas the 360-degree circle uses pi and irrational numbers in their system. And this is really this is where it's a major kind of point here, is that nature is not using irrational numbers for energetic events. And I need to be clear on this, is that we do have irrational constants that have irrational numbers in our mathematics, but nature is not doing energetic events where it doesn't know. An irrational number by definition is one that the last digit in the number system keeps changing. It's never the same. And energetic events that nature executes are very precise, and they're very rational. And this system, the 363 system, is this rational whole number system.
That's absolutely fascinating stuff. So, in a way, if you've got this kind of new geometry that nature is you're suggesting that nature's aligning with that. So is that kind of like in a way, a redefinition of space and time to, how we understand it, this new geometry?
Yeah, so nature's using resonance. Nature's always been using resonance. And I think this mathematics that I have here, we had it on the planet a long time ago. And then we lost the information. I don't know if this was at the fall, what you'd say the fall of humanity, where the idea is maybe that we were more right-brained a long time ago, and the right brain is more involved in intuition and creativity, and we shut that aspect of our brain down, and we became more analytical, left-brained. And so we have this imbalance between the two hemispheres. And we then disconnected. We disconnected with source. So if you consider that source being this etheric lattice, because it has all this information, energy, it's throughout the entire universe, so it matches, it's present everywhere. So it's omnipresent, it's omnipotent because it's got all this energy, and it also knows everything as well because the energy is information. And whether our geometry changed, because we have geometry within ourselves, and it became a little distorted, and now we're not as tuned in as we should be, and we're not in resonance as much with the etheric lattice that we originally were. we lost some of our communication. We're still connected to source, but not like we should be. It's like a radio station that we're hearing things, but it's still staticky. And we're not like tuned in like we should be. And so I think where this goes is our understanding of this lattice as we dig deeper and we understand it. It brings an awareness that allows us to reconnect. So that if what do we get if we reconnect? We get more connection with the life force. We get more we get more as far as we probably are not going to age as quickly. We're going to live longer. We're going to be more healthy because we're realigning back with what nature is doing. And nature hasn't changed. Nature is using the life force and always has. It's just that humanity, if we decided to play this and shut down our right hemisphere so that we could maybe develop its free will, we can develop certain aspects that are very beneficial. But now I see us coming back where we're going to balance the left and right hemisphere. And this is the beginning of more kind of a return to this knowledge, this information. But if we truly want to become sovereign entities and have mastery over matter, mastery over the physical, then we need to go back and look at how the lattice is operating. And so that we can now use visualization, meditations, things like this to help realign ourselves.
I'm finding this really fascinating, and the implications of this connecting. Ultimately, what you're saying is that balancing of the left and right hemisphere and that connection with 0 point energy or source or God, however you like to look at that. And, the implications of this, firstly, something that Tesla was looking at in terms of free energy as well, but also in terms of our systems. So many people are disillusioned at the moment, and there is this potential for the creation of new systems, really, with this new understanding. Is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, so I think as we understand, so the etheric lattice is not, so it applies to not only the human body, but it also all of our technology. Because if you understand, I firmly believe if you understand the lattice and the flow of energy, and that it opens the door to a natural energy. And I think the ancients were using natural energy, not artificial energy. Much of the energy that we're generating today is not healthy. It's not healthy for the planet. But we are surrounded and we are swimming in energy. It's all around us. It's like air. And we just need to like remember how to connect to this energy source. Because we're talking about with this scalar physics, we're talking about what's called 0 point energy, free energy, and this is all connected. It's connected to your health. It's connected to energy that could run devices, cars, houses, and it's all free. We can understand how to reconnect to it. There's essentially unlimited sources of energy. No more electric bills, no more gas bills. These are just things that we are replacing some of our older energetic systems with ones that are going to be new, and you're going to see a revolution in the technologies, and that's exciting. That's very exciting, and I believe it starts here with our understanding of this etheric lattice, and there's much work to be done on it. As I remember this and aspects, there's just information that's continued to come to me.
I find this absolutely fascinating because what you've spoken about earlier, it was kind of like a remembering, and this is New Earth Co-Creators, and a lot of people come on and we're talking about remembering our ancient wisdom. And the sense that I'm getting is that a lot of this information, it didn't just come from Tesla, it was encoded in the ancient pyramids. And would you say that some of these sacred geometries were able to pull that life force and they had an understanding of this work?
Mhm. Yeah, so I use Tesla because Tesla is in our, as far as our generation, of course, he passed away in 1943. He's the last individual that I can pinpoint, I can point to and say he had this knowledge. This knowledge goes way back. It's much older than Tesla, and it is been on the planet before, and I can see it going back into ancient Egypt. Um, and so that aspect is very exciting. And the other aspect is why, what's going on with humanity. I think humanity, everybody, the universe is watching humanity, and they're it's like this experiment, and they're waiting to see if we can become multidimensional in these physical avatars that we have. And this is something that I think has not been done before in the universe, and many others are very interested to see if we can pull this off. And I think we're pulling it off by we have to reconnect back to the source. So the connection here is that if we're going to reconnect back to the source, and we have to have a knowledge or a remembrance of what the lattice, this etheric lattice looks like, how it operates, so that we can implement it and integrate it. And that starts with the awareness of how it works.
Can you briefly share your slides on the hieroglyphs and the geometries behind this?
Okay, I didn't explain this, but we can come back to this if you want. Let me just explain this very quickly. This is a keychain that came from the Sagrada Familia. Okay, so this is in Spain. And there's some knowledge on the planet about this 33 lattice that I showed you. Well, this is a keychain, and if you look through here, it doesn't matter whether you go horizontally or vertically or diagonally. The numbers all add to 33. So even the core here, and I told you that 33, as I showed you, this is the base frequency of the etheric lattice of the nodes as you move around it. So I can come back to that later. So a little bit on the ancient hieroglyphs. So this is the weighing of the heart hieroglyph. And this hieroglyph is describing where you can see it's got a scale. There's many of the gods and goddesses are in this hieroglyph. There's 7 that are over here. Anubis is here with the jackal head. You have also Thoth the scribe with the ibis head. We have what's called an initiate that's going through this evaluation process of like the soul. And we have Horus that's here. This other chamber here, we have Osiris and the 2 sisters, Isis and Nephthys, are here. But encrypted in this hieroglyph, and then there's 14 initiates up here. There are very important numerology is very important in here. There's like 33 scrolls that go across here, but I refer to these as scrolls. Um, and so if you notice and you pay very close attention, the Anubis appears twice in this, and then Annie here, the initiate, appears twice as well. So that's 22. 22 times 33 is 726. In my scalar system, that is the tetrahedron. Um, you can look at 33 times these 7 individuals here that are here, and that will give you the number 231. And if you add its mirror, also its mirror addition, so you take 231 and you add it to 132, its mirror, you get the scalar circle at 363. And I could go on and on about these initiates and the colors and how these numbers will plug right back into the etheric lattice that I was showing you, and important shells that show up, the 1089 shells as well. So there's so much information. The ancient Egyptians encrypted into their hieroglyphs the scalar physics, and it's represented in their numerology. Um, and um, and that is just really fascinating and I can take this thing apart, and there's so much more. I'm not even showing you, but a very small fraction of it, and I mention it in the book. I'll make a separate video so we can really go deeper into it for those that want the numbers. Um, and so it's clear to me that they were aware of this entire system. Now, why did they encrypt it? That's a whole nother probably conversation of why they would encrypt it into the numerology, but they clearly were doing this. Um, and also, I noticed the Osiris, the seven gates that are referred to, the Osiris gates. I can map this back. Also, this is a picture that comes out of Karnak in Egypt. You can see there are seven doors, or seven, sometimes referred to as gates. This is associated with, I can put this back onto the etheric lattice and how the energy moves in a spiral that's a heptagonal based spiral. So the number 7 and 11 were incredibly important in the Egyptian culture. A lot of people see numbers like 1111 on the clock and they don't know what that means. We've got 711. These ratios are in the Great Pyramid for the square base versus the height. And it's all about making physical structures that connect back to the etheric lattice to pull the energy to those locations. This is what they were doing. The ancients were actually, they understood, if I could give you a couple of examples of why angle shape is so important. So underneath if you go into Egypt, there are actually streams of water that will run, and they cross at specific angles. And these angles then, if they're the correct angles of the mathematics, will generate a vortex that will come up. And in the center of the vortex, you can walk into that area and it will balance your energy. So if you have an organ that's overactive or underactive, it will balance the geometry within those cells, the tissue, and the individual will have healing. And so they were using these power spots, and they were building their architecture, integrating the concepts of the etheric lattice, the dimensions and the angles into their physical structures, just so they could pull the energy to resonance, the life force, to those locations.
That's so fascinating. I had Maria Wheatley on the podcast talking of the energy of sacred sites, and she spoke about this as well. So I'm going to put the link to that video in the video description as well. So Craig, this has been absolutely amazing. I feel like we could have had 10 podcasts. I feel like we're just skimming the surface here. There's just so much to it. And so please do check out Craig's amazing YouTube channel, where he's going into great depth about the mathematics and breaking each chapter of the book down so you can really understand it deeply. Yeah, so this is on both my channel and Craig's channel. So just click on the 363 code tab, and then you can subscribe to Craig's channel on YouTube as well as mine. And yeah, so thank you so much, Craig. And just let us know how people can find you. If you have a website, how they can find your book. I'm going to put the link to the book in the video description as well. So let us know if you have any last thoughts. I'm curious to ask you, why now? Why do you feel this is the moment that this information is coming, and how do you believe it could revolutionize our world?
Yeah, so I feel like I've been preparing to drop this information for almost my entire life. Everything has been synchronized from the hourglass. The hourglass actually, I'll show you. Well, the hourglass represents that etheric lattice. It's just a different way to represent the symbol. So I've been kind of getting ready for this for quite some time, and And the information, I feel I don't, the information doesn't belong to me. It belongs to humanity. The mathematics, I'm sharing it because at the deepest level, it may be somewhere on the planet somewhere, but it's not in the open. And this information needs to be in the open for humanity so that humanity can to take the information and apply it in their daily lives. It will revolutionize technology in across many different sectors. And you're going to see it from a transformation in transportation. I mean, you can walk through a portal with this kind of energy as opposed to like going through the airports, and so it's going to open so many areas of medicine, of also communication, because energy ultimately is everything. It penetrates into everything, and also into the finances. So it's really a timely thing because I feel like we're at the cusp of where things are really moving quickly for humanity, and we're going to see these changes, I think, happen relatively quickly. So as far as the book can be found on Amazon. It's available if you just search under the 363 code. It will pop up. It's available in different formats, and I really just want to get the information to individuals, and we can all work on it together. Like I said, it doesn't belong to me. I remembered the information. It's coming, and I'm sharing it. I'm so excited to share it. I really am.
That's the key, and I've already got a few people that I'm thinking I've got to send the new technologies that they're working with. I know that they are going to want to watch this podcast, so please do share it if you feel there's someone that's working in a field that could benefit from this knowledge. So thank you so much, Craig, and I just want to mention your beautiful partner, Daniela, as well, because she's been such a great inspiration behind the book as well. And sadly, she couldn't be with us today. But I just really wanted to, I feel like she holds a lot of the energy and frequency
Yes.
somehow. That's very intuitive. I don't know how to put it, but it's like she's bringing something through that's really
Yeah,
beautiful.
she's amazing, and we met in Egypt, and we remembered each other. We were in front of the Sphinx, um, and we have gone all over. She's an amazing energy. She like is incredibly powerful in the field in her ability to perceive things.
Yeah.
An amazing woman for sure.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening in today. Many blessings and bye for now.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.